Good
Good morning.
morning. Happy New Year, Mo. Happy New Year, Internet land. All you beautiful people out there. We're just waiting for Instagram to come online and then we will officially get started with our show. But it's
Yeah.
so good
Happy
to
New
be.
Year, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Started with a whisper, and let's hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I would
we
like
are
a
live.
calmer 2025. That would be great.
Me too. Yes, calmer.
Yeah.
Which is why the subject that we're talking about today is what we're talking about, so that you
Yeah.
enter your new year hopefully not all revved up to make massive changes, but instead calm and peaceful and in acceptance of exactly where you are, so that gives you all the strength and power you can gather to make any kind of transformations and changes that you want to make.
Yeah.
Starting with acceptance, which starts with peace, which means
Yeah.
calm.
Yeah. So, welcome to DIY Wellness, the show for people who are taking personal growth into their own hands. Brian and I are exploring different strategies for well-being and improving quality of life, and we invite you to, as we experiment with these, take what you like, leave what you don't, and hopefully improve your quality of life and well-being in the process.
Yeah, exactly. Keep taking personal growth into your own hands, as we like to say
Mhm.
around these
Yeah.
parts.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about New Year's resolutions, day 2 of 2025. In particular, we're talking about self-acceptance instead of self-improvement. So today we're going to talk about why typical resolutions often don't work, mostly don't work. And then we're going to get into a countercultural approach to resolution making, which is where self-acceptance comes in, and we'll kind of explain a little bit more about what that looks like and how to get at it. And then finally, we will offer you guys a tool to help you calibrate so you can kind of gauge how you're bringing self-acceptance into your life, and it will stop and help you in a moment of any kind of suffering to bring more self-acceptance to that moment. That's what the tool will help you do at the end. So that's what we're going to get into today.
Yeah. So why do most New Year's resolutions not work? I'll kind of give my concise take on it, and then I'll kind of let Brian explain further. My personal thought is that in the world, in nature, in most in most arenas, positive change is a gradual thing. It happens over time, like in nature, even going from season to season. It's not like boom fall, boom winter. It's like you kind of see this over time. The leaves start to change, and eventually, by the time you've gotten used to the colors, then like you still have a while to sit and exist in fall and enjoy the season, and then it goes to the next thing. And there is a kind of stark difference between the way that we think about the way that we should change or improve ourselves, and the way that a lot of positive change happens elsewhere. Brian, what do you think?
That makes a lot of sense. Like, I hadn't even really given a whole lot of thought into the deeply about the why. I just know the stats, and the stats are like 95% of New Year's resolutions are discarded in the first 2 weeks. And like the rest, that last 4% that hang on, minus the success stories, they drop out in 6 months, right? So it's like resolutions, they just mostly don't work. Like, they just simply don't. And I think your take on why makes a lot of sense, because whenever we, as a species, like, our brain doesn't like us to bite off more than we can chew. There's a learning thing called neoteny, which is a way to, it's a description of how humans like to learn. It's called neoteny, and neoteny is working at its best when we are slightly challenged and having a blast. And most of the time with New Year's resolutions, we're putting some major challenge in place, and it's not actually necessarily something that's inherently fulfilling. It's something that we think might fulfill us down the road when we achieve it. And so then we're setting ourselves up to try to make a drastic change happen and to be unfulfilled until the change happens. So who's going to stay on that path? I don't want to be on an unfulfilling path towards change. I want to be on a path that's fulfilling, step by step by step, even when I'm here where I'm not fully satisfied, all the way to here where I am.
Yeah, so we're not hating on New Year's resolutions. We're not saying that they can't work necessarily. We're just saying that if there's a lot of pressure to do sweeping change all at once, that level of pressure may create a situation where the change is too difficult, and then therefore we can't follow through with it, or it's difficult because it feels unfulfilling or because it feels self-punishing. And
Yes.
that's at least my experience with a lot of, like, when I hear people talking about New Year's resolutions, the general attitude tends to be like, okay, I'm going to do this sweeping change, and if I don't, then I'm going to punish myself. If I don't, succeed in completely changing my habits all on one day, then I'm going to be angry with myself. I'm going to,
Yeah.
like, shame myself for not being able to do a thing that, like, I
have never done before in my whole life.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Because
Exactly.
if we could have, we would have, right? That's why we're resolving now to do it with white knuckles and bulging veins and all the other things
Yeah.
that go along with New Year's resolutions. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's kind of like built into the way that we're approaching it, you can almost expect that we're going to face some level of uh, self-rejection,
Mm-hmm.
which is partially what leads to the eventual, like, quitting of the resolution, right?
Yeah,
So we
giving
we,
up.
we want to, what Brian and I are kind of suggesting is to approach these changes with more self-gentleness and with more acceptance of where you are. Like, okay, I want to do this thing, but I'm not there yet. Like in our comments, we have somebody who said, I want to hit 1K subs by the end of 2025. I think that's a kind goal, right? But like, if you don't get there, don't beat yourself up. Just continue evaluating and wondering, okay, what's working, what's not working. And like, anytime that you don't reach a goal in a certain time period, don't use that against yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. And goal setting and resolutions have a lot of overlap, but sometimes resolutions aren't necessarily about achieving an external goal like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Oftentimes resolutions for people are about cutting something out, right? Like, I'm going to stop doing this, or I'm going to quit doing that. That's also very difficult, right? To subtract something that we've been having so much trouble subtracting. And that whole focus on, like, okay, now it's January 1st. What about me is bad and wrong and should be changed? Let me look into it and figure it all out, and then make a sweeping grand declaration about it. Like, that is bound to fail because it's rooted in non-acceptance. Like, that's where it's rooted, right? And so what we're saying is, obviously we all want change. We all want transformation to happen in our lives, but with such an outward focus on improvement, which is what culture teaches us resolutions are about, we completely miss the fact that we're also okay now, that we've done a lot to get to where we are now, that life hasn't been easy up to now, and we're still doing our best. And we're here watching a show about resolutions because we want to know how to make this work this time, right? So this is like, we're determined, and we just want to find a new way forward, a more effective way forward. So we'll get into what this countercultural approach is, this radical acceptance of self. And one of the things here is make them effortless, like make them things that are fulfilling in and of themselves. Like I resolve to be more peaceful. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. I resolve to experience more joy. I resolve to notice moments of hope, things like that.
Yeah.
Those are a lot different than like, I resolve to lose 10 pounds by X date or else, right? Like, wow. Because once you're rooted in that acceptance piece, I am feeling more peaceful. I am looking for moments of happiness. I am looking for gratitude. I am trying to cultivate those different states of being. The other goals that you want that keep slipping through your grasp, they will start coming towards you, because oftentimes the reason we're doing self-sabotage is rooted in things like not being self-accepting, not being self-gentle, and not being peaceful, right? So resolve that way. Resolve right now to say, me, with my foibles, with my fumbles, with my flaws, with my fuck ups, I accept everything about me right here, right now. Probably feels weird to even try. Like, doing that to yourself might feel strange, but this is the countercultural approach to resolving to make change.
Yeah, and it feels more gentle. It's, if you can start from a place of like, okay, I'm okay the way that I am. I can still reach for goals. I can still look for, making positive change, right? But not from a place of, I hate the way that I am. More so, I don't know. I think it also kind of aligns with like the attitude of like, oh, I want to feel a certain way. I want to feel better. I want to feel comfortable. I want to feel at peace, like Brian often says. And the way that I approach that I could think that changing myself will make me feel that way, but most of the time it's going to contribute to some self-loathing or some stress, or you know what I mean? And so if we can find a way to pursue whatever goals we have from a place of how do I do this in a way that feels gentle? How do I do this in a way that feels fun or fulfilling to me? Then you're less likely to have the negative side effects of like being really hard on yourself on the way to achieving whatever it is you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird paradoxical thing. And oftentimes things that are truthy, rooted in truth, they have a paradox about their nature because the truth by its nature includes. So it includes both sides. And here the paradox is by accepting radically exactly how I am with my flaws and all, I prime the soil for great change. But by white knuckling great change, I'm actually hitting against asphalt or like fallow ground, right? So you really want to root yourself in the acceptance piece first. The self-improvement that we're all looking for comes as a byproduct automatically of self-acceptance. So starting with self-acceptance will lead you down this path. Carl Rogers is like this, he's a psychotherapist. He from the 60s or whatever, he created person-centered therapy, which is a whole like track of psychotherapy, and it's kind of taken over a lot of stuff. And he has this famous quote, and his quote is, you can't change. In order to make change, you have to start by accepting exactly where you are now. That's sort of a bastardization of the quote, but that's the basic gist.
Yeah.
So that's the idea here, is like the paradox is, I don't like where I am, but by accepting it, allowing it, being gentle with it, even if I'm not comfy with it, primes my soil for change. It allows for change because that pent up energy of frustration, I've got to make change, doesn't allow for change. That energy is rooted in a fear and an anxiety. And so when you're in fear and anxiety, do you feel like, oh, I should break out of my comfort zone and go make change? No. You crawl into a corner, hide under the covers. You don't return calls. Like, so fear and anxiety are not places from which to make change. Self-acceptance is the place. And you don't even have to make the change. The change just starts to happen.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone watching has had this experience, but I feel like in moments where I feel like I don't like something about myself and I want to change it, it almost feels difficult to share that with anybody. It's like, it's almost difficult to like speak it into existence. But a lot of times I've found that once I do like say it out loud, then somebody else is like, you don't have to change that about yourself. Like, you know what I mean? And, you know, that's if you're lucky, if you have really supportive people around you, right? But there's almost like a freezing that comes from just this desire to be different. But on the other hand, if you're like, okay, I'm okay where I am, but I want to move towards something that feels good to me, it's slightly different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because the idea here with self-acceptance is that we're rooting our desire for change, because desire for change isn't a problem. We're not saying self-improvement is some kind of a villain. It's natural. Nature is always changing. Everything's always changing. And in the wake of change, we would of course love the changes to be improvements if possible. We'd be crazy not to, right? So, but the idea here is that the rooting your desired changes that you want to make down the line in self-acceptance, what you're reminding yourself of is something that's true. And when they're not rooted in self-acceptance, you're telling yourself something that's false. And whenever you tell yourself something false, it's going to tighten up and stress out your body. The false thing you're telling yourself when you say, I've got to change this year, is I'm not worthy right now. I'm not whole and complete right now. I'm currently broken. Those are all lies. It doesn't even matter how much trauma you've been through and what you're currently going through and where you are on your healing journey right now. Right now, despite all that, you are whole. You are worthy. You are not broken. Those are the truth. And so when you accept yourself and say, I've got this self-sabotaging habit, but I know I'm not broken. I am not broken. I am not broken. This is just something, and I want to work on it. That allows for it to be worked on, because you're not broken. You're fundamentally in self-acceptance. This is aspirational. This takes time, but this is what we are talking about. This is what we are saying. Root all the changes you want to make. Self-improvement up the wazoo, but root it in self-acceptance. And actually the self-improvement won't seem so important to you anymore because you'll be more accepting.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you can't access that attitude at this moment, even if you can't like really believe like I'm not broken, just kind of consider the possibility that coming from a place of believing that actually opens the door to positive change.
That
And
is so well said. Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because we get to choose our beliefs. So choose this empowering belief and allow it to open the door for you, because it may be hard to believe the belief. And that's why we actually have the tool that we're about to share. So let's get into the tool, because the tool will help you. Those of you that do not believe and actually think to yourself, I am broken and this guy's a quack, right? Like, just try this tool out, because this tool doesn't require you to have any beliefs. It helps you to stop in the middle of your suffering and try acceptance on for size. That's what the tool is. So the tool doesn't require you to change any beliefs. It's just asking you to practice something. So basically it goes like this. Whenever you find yourself in a moment that's not ideal for you, it could be you're mildly frustrated, you're a little impatient, you're deeply traumatized. It doesn't matter. When you're suffering, and as soon as you notice that, oh, I'm frustrated right now, or I'm angry right now, or oh, I've been staring off into space, so I'm disassociating. Like, as soon as you kind of come back to it for a second and you've captured the fact that you're in some kind of suffering, pause and ask yourself this question. This question will help you root how you treat yourself next in self-acceptance. The question is this: how would I treat a scared child, a wounded animal, or my best friend if they were going through what I'm currently going through and suffering from what I'm currently suffering? Then sit for a moment, and whatever response comes up, the genuine heartfelt response, like, ooh, this is how I would act towards the little kid. This is how I would act towards the broken animal or towards my good friend. Then offer that same response to yourself in that moment. This is the exercise, because this is what we do not do. This is where we are all a hypocrite in this culture. And we're an accidental people-pleasing hypocrite, but we are so nice to everyone around us. And then we are so mean to ourselves for the same crap. Same crap that we will easily forgive somebody else for and tell them to cut themselves some slack. We don't cut that slack. This question will help you cut yourself that slack. And then slowly over time, you will be more and more and more rooted in self-acceptance. And then self-improvement just starts to follow. You don't have to chase it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if we were to apply this in an example, let's say you set a New Year's resolution, right? And you're 2 weeks in. I mean, we're only, at day 2 here, right? But let's imagine we're 2 weeks in and you're feeling frustrated because you set a goal and you wanted to do this thing and it's not quite working out. You could, based on the way that we tend to treat ourselves, be like, oh, well, I'm a piece of crap because I didn't follow through on this thing, yada, yada. And then you're going to feel super discouraged and stop. Or you can ask, how would I treat my best friend? How would I treat a scared child if they were feeling the way that I'm feeling and they were struggling with what I'm struggling with? And if I were to ask myself personally, how would I treat my best friend? I would be like, hey, like, you don't have to do it all in one day. Like, this is going to take time. It's okay. And rather than, if we were rooted in the way that we would normally treat ourselves, we would probably be like, I didn't do it. I suck. Black and white thinking. I'm done.
Failed again. Typical.
Yeah, failed again. Yeah. You feel like
you
garbage.
would never say that to your friend,
right.
ever.
You would never say that to your friend. So when you kind of anchor yourself in how would I treat somebody else? It's going to be so much more accepting. It's going to be so much more gentle and kind. And then you're going to be far more likely to be able to continue in whatever form or way that looks like for you. It probably won't be like the all or nothing, I have to do it perfectly. It'll be the what's one step I can take towards the thing that I want because I still want this for myself.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the way, folks. So just as you're considering your resolutions this year, as you're looking at the precipice of great change that you want to make, take a step back, take a deep breath, and say, I accept. I accept where I am right now. And then keep going, keep taking personal growth into your own hands. We do. And we'll be back again next week at 8:30 a.m. Eastern to talk a little bit more about resolutions and come at it from another angle. If you guys try this question, asking this question when you're feeling some kind of suffering and it works for you, or you have some kind of experience, good, bad, or ugly, we don't care. Put it in the comments. We want to talk about it. We want to address this and go deeper with folks. So let us know how it works when you try this out. And until next week, keep taking personal growth into your own hands. We love you all. Thank you so much.
Bye.